University students and faculty alike have reported for duty in the aftermath of the recent Gulf oil spill, a spill that some estimates have as the largest ever in U.S. waters. Students have been organizing relief efforts while university scientists gather data for comparison and weigh in on all the tricky variables involved. The Gulf spill was the subject of a teach-in, a type of educational forum held Saturday, May 15th, and organized by the Office of External Relations. It was the second such teach-in this year, the first being held in response to the deadly magnitude 7 earthquake that struck Haiti in January. The panel of experts dissected the issue, speaking on everything from the spill's chemistry and causes to its effect on the environment, economy, and energy policy at the local and national levels. Michael Heithaus, director of the School of Environment and Society, led the discussion and said that informing the public was a major aspect of the university's response to the crisis.
FIU has a broad-based response to the spill that includes the School of Environment and Society as well as other groups within FIU. One of the things that we're doing is engaging in public education. We've just done this teach-in to let people know what's going on with the spill and what the potential impacts are.
Aside from the public information campaign, FIU scientists are on the ground with thousands of other researchers from across the country, taking samples of everything from the water to the fish populations, in an effort to determine the effects of the oil on the regional ecosystem and wildlife. University researchers are gearing their efforts to predicting and preparing for the possible arrival of oil in South Florida, and in determining the oil's effects on the fragile bionetworks of the Everglades and the Florida Keys, the largest natural coral reef formation in the U.S.
Yeah, this is a tough oil spill because partially we don't even know where a lot of the oil is. It turns out that a lot of it's probably below the surface and we don't know exactly where that's going, and depending on the vagaries of winds and currents, it could end up in South Florida or it may not be impacting this area very much. And then it also kind of depends on how toxic the oil is, how long it takes to get here. That's all going to determine what its impact will be in South Florida and other parts around the Gulf.
The spill itself began on April 20th, when the drilling rig Deepwater Horizon experienced a blowout after drying concrete caused an inadvertent chemical reaction at the base of the well. This reaction produced a methane bubble that rocketed toward the surface through the drill column. The bubble burst through several seals and barriers on its way up. As the gas ascended, it expanded, as there was less pressure acting on it as it neared the surface. When it reached the surface, the bubble caused an enormous explosion and fire, which, despite the efforts of rescue and emergency response personnel, cost 11 their lives and injured 17. After burning for a day, the rig eventually sank 5,000 feet to the bottom of the Gulf, taking the drill column with it. Light sweet crude oil has been leaking from the pipes ever since, at a rate anywhere between 5 and 162,000 barrels of oil per day. Though estimates of volume vary considerably as measuring oil underwater is an inexact science, this incident may have eclipsed the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill as the largest ever in U.S. waters, a spill which dumped 270,000 barrels into the ocean. British Petroleum, the oil company responsible for the well, has recently had little luck trying to seal the leak using what is known as the top kill procedure, where heavy drilling mud was pumped into the blowout preventer in the hopes of obstructing the flow of oil. Other than top kill, officials have been combating the oil using more traditional methods, including skimming it off the surface, controlled burns, and heavy doses of dispersants, chemicals which break down the oil so that it is more easily digested by the oceans. The dispersants have caused a controversy in themselves, with many experts saying they do more harm than good. At least one audience member at the teach-in echoed that sentiment.
How does a dispersant stop the oil from coming to shore? Basically, it disperses the oil, but the dispersed oil does come to the shore. And what's happening now is instead of one poison, we are getting 2 poisons on the shore.
While the panelists agreed that dispersants were a necessary evil, they acknowledged that the entire spill was a big no-win scenario.
Basically, by putting dispersants on this at sea, someone has made the decision that environmental harm at sea is the lesser of 2 evils compared to environmental harm in the shoreline. And that may be true or may not be true.
James Forkran, a marine ecologist, said that both the oil and dispersants were particularly destructive to the fragile ecosystems of the Everglades and coral reefs, hotbeds for marine biodiversity.
Oil has a tremendous number of compounds in it, and not only that, but oil is acted upon by bacteria and by sunlight, and the compounds in oil change as oil sits around. more volatile things are lost to the atmosphere, soluble compounds are developed, and a lot of those compounds are just toxic to animals. They kill animals.
Forkran said the best chance the oil has of getting to South Florida was by catching a ride on the Gulf Loop Current, which flows into the Gulf during the summer months before doubling back and continuing around the tip of the state. Though it is unlikely, should the oil reach South Florida, there are many ways in which it can kill.
There's the direct toxic effect, but then there's also the problem of coming into contact with the oil coating organisms. So sea turtles and birds and air-breathing things that go up and down through the oil can become coated, and that can interfere with their ability to just move around in the environment.
The spill has also changed the way people are looking at drilling for oil in the Gulf, with many, including Florida's Governor Charlie Crist, calling for an outright ban to offshore drilling, at a time when drilling was looking to be expanded for the first time in years. But with the nation's insatiable thirst for oil, offshore drilling will likely continue for the time being. Edward Glab, a professor and expert on the global energy industries, said that the occasional spill notwithstanding, drilling in the Gulf was by and large a safe industry. Glab spoke with student media from his Miami home.
When you have over 3,500 rigs in the Gulf that are drilling, they've been drilling in the Gulf of Mexico successfully for half a century. What happened there on the transoceanic rig is an exception. You never hear about this sort of thing in the Gulf. Oh yeah, there's little leaks here and there, but nothing of this magnitude.
Glab said that one catastrophic event was an isolated incident and should not overshadow the industry's overall good safety record.
It's kind of like a plane crash, you know. In spite of the fact that you have all these plane crashes, not all of them, you have once in a while a plane crash, it's still the safest way to travel. And it's an enormously safe industry. Really what we need to do when it comes to offshore drilling is to figure out what went wrong, put the things in place so that particular problem can never occur again.
Still, many are saying that the Deepwater Horizon incident is a perfect example of why there needs to be a ban on offshore drilling. Kara Cooper, a graduate environmental studies student, said that despite the tragedy, people should see the disaster as a wake-up call to more sustainable living.
But it also feels like an opportunity for us to empower people. I know that people are upset about this issue, and it's going to help to bring them around to taking that next step, which is contacting your representatives and, carpooling to school and work and making that next step.
Chris Cano, a University of Florida student at the Teach-In, said that it was everyone's responsibility to be conscious of the impact their lifestyle has on the environment.
Everyone should be aware of the impacts, environmental impacts of not only what they do, but what the societies around them are doing. And we all have a stake in this because we all live in the same environment. So essentially, we're all environmentalists.
With tens of thousands of barrels of oil being spilled every day, people will certainly have plenty of time to ponder the repercussions of this deadly spill. This has been Ashley Capo for FIUSM.com.